Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski.
Welcome back to more with Kevin Foley. We'll talk philosophy of running, more stories, and the twists and turns of Kevin's life. Enjoy. What do you think was the best distance for you through that era? Yeah, 216 marathon?
Yeah, I don't think I ever caught my best race in a marathon. I believe I could have run faster. But it was solid. It was Nike, very legit course, anywhere from 15K to the marathon. Let's see, 30K, I went under 5 a mile. In fact, I negative split doing that. I had a good 25, again, big stage, international peace race. I ran in Youngstown, it's Mill Creek Park, very hilly. I ran about 5:02 a mile on that course. I know Malcolm won it. And then there's Britt, Chris Stewart, a Tanzanian, Zach Berry. I was right behind Berry. Half marathon. I wish they had more of those. They're huge now. They were just coming into vogue. I ran in Dayton River Corridor, stacked field. That race was a world record. Paul Cummings just edged Jeff Smith, the British guy. A couple weeks later, Jeff Smith had that dramatic finish in New York where Rod Dixon just edged him. And Cummings just did the same thing in that race. So it was Cummings, Smith, Mark Kerp, who set an American record eventually at a half marathon, and a British guy, Martin Brewer. I was fifth in that race. I ran 104.20, and as fast as it is, the reality, I go through 10 miles at 48.50. I can't even see Cummings or Smith. They are so far around. So you can't get too full of yourself. There's always someone better, always somebody better.
That's the philosophy of the Edinboro Rags thinking in there.
Oh, it's with Doug Watts would be, it's like, why didn't you win nationals? Or if I'd have won nationals, could you win Division I? That's how we thought. There's just strive. Just be the best you can be.
Can we talk about the era of scholarships? College cost a lot less then, but financial aid. And of course, the Edinboro team was one of the great teams of all time across any classification. There were the rumors. There were the allegations. What did you guys hear of the rumblings when you had this incredible success that people just said, we don't understand?
Oh, we were getting paid, and I didn't help that. And here's why. I don't know if Doug Watts ever told this story. So we run at Notre Dame, senior year. And going in, Wisconsin's ranked number 2, Michigan's ranked number 6. And the Harriers was actually ranking. We were 12 going in. We go into Notre Dame. Apparently, with a quarter mile to go, we were winning. And every one of us in the 5 all got kicked down by a Wisconsin guy. So they beat us by 15 points. You figure each guy 2-3 places, and we beat Michigan. After the race, some guy, I'm walking from behind my air voice, Edinboro. I was like, yes? What place were you in? And he's being a jerk. So I just said, I'm not sure, but I know it was ahead of you. And so he accuses me of cutting the course.
Wow.
And I just look at myself. So I go off on this. Basically, I just said, we respect your program and your team. And just because you didn't do it today, run better. Don't make excuses. We beat you. How do you know? I said, the scores. I said, trust me, when you get the scores, we beat you. And then we hear, oh, you guys are on full ride. And I says, yeah, and they also gave me a color console TV on top of it. I guess because of that little smart aleck remark, the NCAA paid Doug Watts a visit. And
Yeah, he did talk about. I guess that didn't end up being too stressful for him, but he did
no,
talk about that. There was nothing to hide, I guess.
no, there was no. We had work study money.
Yeah.
That's what.
And no 36-inch TVs.
No, it was 48. No, I was being a wise guy, caught up in the moment. But
Was there that kind of trash talk in other events too, because of the reputation and because of the kind of upstart status of Edinboro, or was that an isolated thing?
when I was gone, I think it was in the 80s. I think it was actually the Sam Bell made a comment. There was some meet where Edinboro won, beat the D1ers, those 80s teams, and they were every bit as good as we were. And
Sure.
he said something to the extent, if all my guys were on full rides, and I know Doug Watts, he called them out on it, wrote him a letter. When we went D2, there's scholarship money, some very limited. And we take great pride. We were a team that we were all within a 3-hour drive of the school, and great location. You're 120 miles dead center of Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. And you got a great recruiter in Doug Watts, and he knows how to pick them. There are just certain people, he can read people, and there are many good runners he's passed on because he just felt they're not a fit. They're entitled. There's a lack of toughness that he senses, and you buy in. I'm here to run. I'm not here for the frills. We're the rags. That's the theme. We didn't have any more than anybody else.
Let me ask you about coaching. Watt's approach was a little bit less. He talks about he never showed up at morning practices, recovery runs. He just said, you guys know how to take care of it. Were you coached by anyone else later in your racing post-university, or had you figured out your training requirements at that point yourself?
First and foremost, Doug Watts teaches you to be independent. I think by my junior year, he did not want us running together on recovery days. Too much talent. And there's always going to be that guy that wants to, when you're sore, you're tired, you're done, who's going to want to test you. And then you might do something stupid like I did. And that's the type of thing that you can avoid. Coaches, I don't think anyone ever believed him that the recovery days. No, he didn't. He did it so we could save ourselves, so we could go out, because the intensity on those days, there are teams that ran more mileage than us, for sure. We're about a 70, 80, roughly.
Really?
Yeah. But I defy any of those. Yeah. Do a workout at a place called Holiday Acres. which is par 3 golf course. And we did some things that were hard, or we weren't afraid to run those hard miles, sub 5-minute miles on flat courses, or we would be doing those stretches, or he'd put us on a fartlek, like where he'd come by in the car. Okay, start running. Stop when you see me. We didn't know how far, which was great. And then he'd say, okay, now recover. And then when you see me, so we get to him, and we're just in our recovery. We felt like we're walking. And he said, yeah, that mile was in 5:45. And it was walk pace on some of those days. But now, you want to see us on the day after, where I'm sure I was running over 7-minute pace. Have to get it back. It was that quality. He individualized it. I needed the blend, the hard intervals and miles. Jeff, the more he ran, the better he got. He did, not me. Jeff, I suspect, ran more than 70 or 80 at times, but Muggs would run 50, 60. But yeah, most of us were in that sweet spot was 70, 80 a week.
Yeah, it's interesting how the variation among the team was. I kind of want to still get to this thing that I've heard, this idea, the big personalities and egos that are normal among competitive driven people. The team, consistent high performance. This idea that you were going to perform at the big meets, and you guys didn't have a team captain, right?
No, I was a team captain.
Oh, you were a team captain. Okay, so then, what do you think you contributed to the psyche, or this idea of just heard you were the stabilizing guy? It wasn't about talent. I don't know what leadership was needed there or how you felt about your role, but what did you feel about being the team captain of that team?
Lead probably more by example than anything. I was probably a little more even keeled. One, I understood leadership I grew up with it. My father, for about 6 years, was on the city council. Then in my high school years, he was the mayor of our city.
Well, yeah.
Well, I saw it, I heard it at the dinner table. I grasped and just watched that unfolds. My mother was a community leader, so I just absorbed those qualities. I was blessed to have my parents as my role models, and that I think helped. But I was certainly not the type of captain, not an in-your-face type. As we know, Jeff can bench press an 18-wheeler, so that probably would have been a bad decision.
It ended badly, sure.
Yeah.
Your background, not only with leadership, but in the politics era, I'm sure, there's a lot of stuff that went into your worldview then.
Yes.
That maybe you quietly were able to accept or guide or participate in. That's pretty interesting.
Political science was my major. My career was a history and government teacher.
Nah, things are making a little bit more sense now because your style is calm. You were hyper competitive and very confident. You faced a lot of challenges. You never lost faith in yourself. But that all makes a little bit more sense now. Maybe I can understand your psyche of all this, because it's quite a bit to have accomplished, and it's quite a bit to manage. Success is something that can be challenging for people, not only failure.
I think one thing my father always instilled in us as he was in politics, always treat all people, no matter who they are, right and with dignity, because you might be above them today. They might be passing you when you're on your way down, and you just may remember. That was very important. and a lot of empathy. My mother fought for the mentally challenged. We had a family friend, their son was. My mom, and this is a true story, she arranged to get a tour of this mental health institution. And this was in the mid to late 1960s, where they used to just take these people, lock them away, and discard. She went in and asked for a tour as the mayor's wife, and she took her friend. They had cameras. They filmed it. Some of that film eventually ended up in the hands of Geraldo Rivera and on an expose. You just learn that you fight the battles for those who cannot fight for themselves. And that's something that's been instilled. As an educator, I've taken that to heart. We have a school that there are over 60 languages spoken, and
Nice.
it's a great snapshot of America. I'm retired now, but there were almost a demographic breakdown of America. It almost matched the school. We had some people in $1 million homes, about pushing mid-30s. I hear now it's about 40% on free or reduced lunch. You got everything in there. I've had kids coming in. I remember had a girl, she walked from El Salvador.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a student, several from Syria, refugees. One who had, his little brother had his hands blown off by playing when he detonated bomb, and the stories, all those things, whether it was in my teaching career, growing up, or as a team captain, was always just remain study. And a calming influence is something that I think that's probably the best way to describe me.
That's pretty impressive. It's really nice to hear. I think anybody listening, it's inspirational. Those are really good values. It's nice to talk with someone who's appreciative of everything good that's happened to them and had challenges. It wasn't easy for you with your physical ailments and just the things that life challenges that threw at you. You came through this successfully. When did you figure out that teaching or academics was where you would end up? Was that something early on?
It's funny. I thought I wanted to do it. I student taught. It was okay. But I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to do this. And so when I graduated, it's actually December of 77 from student teaching, my family had moved from Warwick to Columbus. My dad got transferred. So here I am in a new town, don't know a soul. But the good news was I had a name in running. So I went on to Ohio State, and I was able to run with those guys. I could train on the indoor facility. I had a nice little setup there. But I went into running like full-fledged, training hard. I just wanted to maybe go to grad school, and I was figuring it out. And I was running lots and lots of miles. And I decided a marathon, I'm going to give it a shot. First one I ever ran was in the spring of 1978 in Cleveland, the first ever. That was then called the Revco Marathon. I ran 2:20:44, and what an experience. The last 3 miles, I went hypoglycemic. I was seeing these giant spots. I would go by the mile marker, and I couldn't listen to my split time and run at the same time. I just couldn't do it. But I kept the pace, and that was something that I was on and encouraged by it. What I found, obviously I love running. It's been my passion. after about a year of that, I kind of got bored with it. I was picking up part-time jobs here or there. I was a room service waiter in a hotel. Those stories, not for people under the age 18. Like I'm listening. Oh my gosh. But my running started to suffer. And I wasn't liking it anymore. And at the point where I got back to 1-a-day running. And what am I going to do with my life? And I swear I'm never going to sub. I decided, what the heck? So I started to sub. I liked it. It was fun. I knew I'm going to go for this. And I worked tirelessly to get a job, and I finally did at a Catholic school in Cleveland. And once I had that security, I had that job, my running just skyrocketed.
Came back. Wow.
Yeah. And so that summer, I started my teaching job. I'd taught about a week, 2 weeks, left on a Friday, caught a plane from Cleveland, ended up ultimately to Eugene. It was a Sunday, ran 2:16. I was so jacked, I couldn't sleep. But I caught a plane and then down to San Francisco, transferred, take the red eye into Cleveland. I get in at 6:30 a.m., drive back to my apartment, shower, go in. I haven't slept. I teach that day. I finished the day, and we're supposed to stay contract time, like another 45 minutes, whatever. The principal took one look at me, said, go home. I was now in my happy place. Teaching was every bit. I loved teaching, and I gravitated into coaching. And in the early years, I actually coached basketball in the winter because running, it would interfere with my running still. And I played basketball in high school, so I knew enough to coach freshman basketball. Had a lot of fun with it and did that for several years, about maybe 6. And then the injuries started to pile up. Once I knew that the real elite running, I knew into the line. I'd still run, and I can run pretty good, but then I decided to get into coaching cross country and track. I got out of the basketball, and I found I made a much bigger impact as a coach than I ever did as a runner, and how I could positively impact lives in ways I never thought possible. I've probably made my mark more as a coach than a teacher, and that bothers me to no end. It put so much more into my teaching. I think I was a good teacher, but that you made a mark as a coach, because now it doesn't matter where I go. Hey, the supermarket, I coach Foley to the point where I'm walking into church. Good morning, Coach Foley. How are you today?
It's become part of your name, yeah.
Yeah,
Coach.
It really has. But obviously, I've stepped away from the coaching to 42 years. Coaching career. And my wife made a lot of sacrifices in those 42 years. I was going to still coach when I retired from teaching 2 years ago, and then it hit me. But then from these months, now again, I can't do this, I can't do that. And with grandchildren, all of a sudden, it was time. I'm a grandfather, and as it turns out, I've been needed a lot. Child care, and my daughter just recently and son-in-law came back from Washington State. They're now here. So Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm watching the grandson. So We call it it's dude school. Yeah,
That sounds like a great phase of life. Yeah, at this age, the people I'm talking to in this podcast have mostly all been through all of these transitions in life. Can I ask you to think about across that span again, the importance and how you've mixed competitiveness and the empathy and the value system you have for empathy and supporting other people and competition? How did you manage that when personal competition ended for you? When you said, okay, the elite running's over, so I have to change my view of myself and competition. Then entering coaching, how did your competitiveness and drive inform how you interacted with these kids?
first you have to remember they're high schoolers, but I was very driven and it rubbed off. I had some real success with some of my athletes. I coached a young man by the name of J.J. White, who was number one nationally in 1993 in the 3,200. I've had some state champions. I've been blessed. 3 of my track athletes have played in the NFL. 2 actually were in the Super Bowl, and one, what a sense of pride watching the one. He was a defensive back for the Falcons, and they were up on New England 24-3 at half, and he had the privilege of getting picked apart by the GOAT in the second half.
Yeah.
But that part, it certainly filled that void.
I wanted to ask you about from the 70s and 80s, the nature of corporate sponsorship, which had just started at some point in the 70s. And at your level, did companies like Nike pursue you, and what kinds of things were offered?
I was very blessed to have Nike pick me up as a sponsor. I wasn't one of those guys on contract per se, but essentially it was unlimited equipment. And I do mean unlimited. Occasionally they would take you someplace. They'd always take you in for the marathon. And the one year, a real treat after the marathon, they took us to the warehouse and
What that is?
the Nike warehouse. And so the factory's up in Portland, Beaverton, I think. So
Yeah.
they gave us these huge duffel bags and just said, have at it. So we're running through the shoes, throwing apparel. I mean, as much as, and back then on the airplane, they didn't care how many bags you had. They didn't charge you. I just come back with this bag stuffed. The sponsorship they offered, for example, for the Olympic trials for qualifying, a box showed up at my front door that was probably about 36 inches high. It had obviously all the shoes. I had sports clothes, sports shirts, my Nike beach towel, and it had this one real weird, like it was a warm up. It was like the pant was like an overall covered with the top, which I would never be seen alive in public in. But after the marathon one year, they offered us a week at Sun River, which is a resort in Bend, Oregon. And you're recovering. And I couldn't go because I had just started my teaching job at my second school. And I don't think I could tell the principal, I'm going to be taking the week off. It's September. That probably wouldn't have flown. I had this regret. Gosh, I never got to Bend. A good story with this is that my daughter, my oldest daughter, Kelly, was married in 2017, and she ended up on the West Coast by first. She had a research assistantship at Oregon State University, and that's where she met her husband. And they eventually were in Seattle. and they just moved back here, which is lovely. They had a destination wedding in Bend. So I finally got to Bend, and it was worth the wait. That was fabulous. But after the Cascade runoff, they loaded people on a bus, took you down to Eugene to the track trials. You hung out in the VIP tent. And, I mean, it was sweet. And like in a lot of the races too, they sent you to, you're wined and dined. I mean, a race experience wasn't just show up and run.
Right.
Typically, you'd go in and you'd meet the sponsors. They were always interested they wanted to meet you, and a lot of them were interested in running. That was enjoyable. You'd have the race, and then Nike was legendary for their post-race gatherings. You can cut that part out.
Well, we'll leave it in there and just have it unsaid.
Yeah. So I was in my 20s. All right. They really took great care of us. But after the 84 Olympics, Nike went a different direction. A couple things happened. The East Bloc boycott. So there were people winning medals who may not have won medals. So they had to pay out. They had to pay out a lot of money. Number one. And two, some guy named Michael Jordan. Nike decided to diversify. Nike had always been a company for runners by runners. It was always cool. You go to the Eugene Marathon, and at the gatherings, you'd hang out with like Jeff Hollister, Nelson Ferris, Phil Knight. They're just cool people. But they went corporate. So somebody had to get cut. So they took guys like me. It's like Kevin Foley. Who's he? He's not going to win any Olympic medals. And they just said they were going to have to cut off the relationship. And I wrote them the most gracious thank you, but I was so appreciative of it. Then Adidas picked me up for, can't remember, at least 2 or 3 more years anyway. And the injuries took the toll. But the cool thing is, pretty much in college, I had my shoes pretty much given. And after college, I had with all the Nikes and Adidas, a traumatic experience in my life was in
I know what's coming. You had to buy a pair of shoes.
Yeah. I didn't know what to do. I never paid attention. I took them out of the box. Yeah, this feels good. People would always ask me about shoes. I don't know. They send them to me. I wear them. I can't. Yeah, I had to buy shoes. I still have some apparel in the wrappers, in the package, and some of it with the sunburst. So I've been told it's worth a lot of money in Japan.
I would imagine unwrapped original stuff, on an auction or on eBay, you probably have some collectors after that stuff. What about what's in the background of my picture? I've chosen that as a podcast icon.
I've been staring at them the whole time, reminiscing. That's exactly the shoes I wore at the PSAC when I ran at East Stroudsburg my junior year, because I was leery of some parts of the course, thinking, I don't know if spikes would be good or not. I think I could have run faster in spikes. No risks, no reward, right?
These shoes, I'm sure all the runners from the 70s recognize them. That thin layer of green rubber and weightless yellow nylon on top.
Yeah, they came out with something slightly more substantial as a waffle racer. That's what I ran my 216 in.
Really? On the road?
Yeah. I didn't say I was smart. I remember after I developed some bursitis, I wonder why, but it went away. But yeah, that was dumb. I should have never done that.
Well, let me ask you one more thing about shoes then over time as a coach. Were you part of it? Were the athletes individual enough that they knew what shoes they wanted? Were you part of that decision with your athletes?
You mean the ones I coached?
Yes.
Oh, honestly, the most common question, what is the best shoe I can train in?
Right.
And the standard answer was, it depends on what is your foot structure? Do you pronate? And these days, we have a couple of places right here in town. They're good. They'll say, all right, put these on. I want to watch you walk. I want to watch you run. Okay, well, this model probably not, this would be a better model for you. That's my answer. And in the last 10 years, they knew more about the shoes than I. The advice I can give them now is, if you're serious about this sport, you got to buy what are they called? The Alpha Flies?
Vapor flies and
Vapor Fly, yeah. Or you're at a deficit. And if you're on,
yeah, you're giving up a couple percent. Yeah.
yeah. Or if you're on the track, you better have carbon plated spikes. And oh, it's different. How can you go to indoor at Boston U and they're like 62 sub 4 minute miles run? Like Heat 8 sub 4, still somebody's still dropping a sub 4. They're good, but I think Roger Bannister was better, honestly. The sports of it is evolved. Yeah, can you compare fairly now to when we ran? No, but then again, what we had and compare, what about guys like Gunder Haag, Roger Bannister, Derek Abatson, Peter Snell? So in the evolution of the game, it's just the way that it is.
Every generation's going to change it from training to equipment to nutrition, everything else. Yeah.
These shoes give you better recovery. And that's some of the things. It was like cardboard with glue. And there were these shoes from Finland that were bright orange that Coach Watts gave us some of those. I don't know where he got this stuff, but those things were horrific. I probably was 2 inches shorter after running in those things. They're awful.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin, tell me about your life today, how it's changed from the 70s.
I think the biggest transition, bar none, would have to be probably in about the last 5, 6 years in my life. And that's accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. My wife and I, we had gone to different churches and we're just finding the right one. One Sunday, we decided to just try this church. And I knew the pastor because I'd coached his kid. I'd coached half this town. I coached at my church. Half the people I worked on my staff or I taught, I coached them. There was something different that drew me in. And just the inclusiveness or what have you in the activities. There was one thing we did one year called the Year of the Bible. You read the Bible cover to cover, and the way it's set up, it's really doable, but you better be disciplined. Wow. It just opened my eyes. Actually, I'm currently in a course that's studying the Bible, a 2-year course. We just finished the Old Testament, and next fall we go into the New Testament. It just essentially just taught me the importance of and presence of Jesus in your life. And my biggest regret, if I tie in my Christianity to my running, I have one, and it's a big one. I never gave any glory of my achievement to Jesus. And wow, when I used to hear athletes say, first thing, I want to give the glory and credit to Jesus Christ. I used to think, You did the work. My learning curve's slow. It took me that long to learn that, yes, I was put here for a reason. And I was given gifts for a reason to use those gifts. And God led me to running. Yes, that was my vehicle, but that was just a step on the way. It wasn't my plan to make my impact mentoring, teaching younger people. I take tremendous pride that I'm in a lot of contact with many of the people that I coached 20 plus years ago. One of my former state champions, I was a gal I coached. Her daughter has a great shot at winning the 800 meters for Ohio this Saturday. That'd just be incredible. And when I watched her daughter run, same arm carriage, head tilt, I'm deja vu. But just, I could have used my platform in running better for the glory of God, but you can't undo it. And God is loving and forgiving. And I understand that. And so you move forward. And so I will use the days that I have left to do that. And that's a big priority in my life. I think, how would have it been different had I made that decision earlier? I don't know. But you just think of all the little things that here I am ready to probably run at any school in the country I want, but it doesn't happen. I end up at Edinboro. And then it takes me here. And every step on the journey, and why am I here? But I'm very happy. No regrets, other than should have glorified, giving the glory to God, but the journey where I've been on, it's taken me places and it's enabled me to use my gifts to, I hope, be a positive impact and force in the community. That's really all I can ask. I don't know what the future holds. I'm very much at peace with the past, how that played out, and where I'm at right now.
That's a great summary. Kevin, it's a pleasure to talk to you. You have a great amount of self-awareness, this understanding and storytelling you have, where you demonstrate that someone can, even with an amazing, accomplished athletic career, with an amazing, accomplished mentoring, teaching, coaching career, we can all still learn new things. We can all still come to peace with life's ups and downs that have happened. It's really inspiring and nice to talk to you through this stuff that maybe isn't the original idea of running in the 70s, but how it all ties together and your perspective on it is fascinating and uplifting.
So this has been a pleasure just doing this because it's made me reflect, and honestly had no idea where this was going to take us, this interview, or I know we were talking about running, and I just knew that, man, I got to protect Doug Watts here. Man, there's too much. I have too much. Well, I better be careful what I say because I think
what I can tell you is I've already recorded Doug Watts' interviews and I'm editing them, so he won't get to rebut. But yeah, he's had his chance to tell his stories. But again, he's a good gentleman and he's unfiltered, but he has a perspective.
That's the beauty of him. It's not gray. It's black or it's white. And he is not politically correct in any sense of the word, and it's what you get.
I'm sure your teammates too from the 70s, and I hope people in your community will be able to find this podcast because it's revealing you're a sincere, authentic person. And that's what really makes this discussion for me and this podcast with you just perfect. We didn't have any agenda, but your priorities and your values come across clearly, and it's great. It'll be interesting, I think, to see what feedback you get on this. And if you surprise people or people just say, that's Kevin we knew. He's just there's a lot going on in that head.
I'll probably surprise some people. Again, probably my Christianity has been more private,
Sure.
but Genesis 12, blessed to be a blessing, so that others in the world may be blessed.
I think most people who have interacted with you are blessed to have you in your life. On behalf of everybody, thanks for all the things you do. You are personally inspirational. You have a great sense of self, and anybody who knows who they are and has your value system of empathy and can say it the way you do. It's been a pleasure spending time with you.
Likewise, I'm so glad to do this and be part of this. Hey, the 70s running, that's who we were.
Hey, the 70s running, that's who we were. And maybe that's who we are.
I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.